A sleek Galactic Council warship hovered above Earth's stratosphere, its imposing silhouette casting an ominous shadow over the planet below. The vessel's metallic hull gleamed with an otherworldly sheen, adorned with insignias of conquered worlds and battle honors from 1,000 interstellar conflicts. Inside the United Terran Alliance headquarters, a holographic projection materialized in the center of the Emergency Council chamber, revealing the stern countenance of Chancellor Veldrix. The alien dignitary stood tall, his iridescent scales shifting colors with each deliberate movement. 4 eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern across his elongated face, surveyed the assembled human ambassadors with undisguised contempt. When he spoke, his voice reverberated with the confidence of one who commanded the most formidable military force in the known galaxy. "People of Earth," Chancellor Veldrix announced, mandibles clicking in what the xenolinguists had long ago identified as a gesture of dominance. "Your continued insolence is unacceptable to the Galactic Council. Your refusal to surrender your sovereignty and natural resources constitutes an act of defiance against our supreme authority." The hologram expanded to reveal the vast armada positioned beyond Earth's atmosphere. Hundreds of warships equipped with planet-killer technology, their weapon systems already charging. "You have 24 Earth hours to surrender unconditionally," continued Veldrix, "or face total annihilation. There will be no further negotiation." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. The assembled ambassadors and military officials exchanged worried glances, murmurs of fear and indignation rising from their ranks. In the far corner of the room, Dr. Amara Jensen observed the proceedings with a calculating gaze. As Earth's foremost xenopolitical analyst, she had spent decades studying the Council's tactics and psychology. She adjusted her silver-rimmed glasses and turned to her colleague. "Interesting," she said quietly. "Their arrogance has led them to a fundamental miscalculation." Her colleague raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean? We have no military fleet to speak of. How are we supposed to stand against that?" He gestured toward the void where the hologram had displayed the massive Council armada. Amara's lips curved into a slight smile. "They believe we're defenseless, aren't we?" "Not in the way they think," she replied, her eyes reflecting a knowledge that few were privy to. "Earth's greatest weapon has never been its capacity for destruction." As the Council of Earth debated frantically about their response to the ultimatum, Amara slipped away from the chamber, her footsteps purposeful as she headed toward a hidden facility beneath the rebuilt ruins of what had once been known as Manhattan. Earth, in 2207 AD, bore little resemblance to the planet of previous centuries. After narrowly surviving climate catastrophe and a brief but devastating resource war, humanity had emerged unified under the banner of the United Terran Alliance. The old nation still existed in cultural memory and regional governance. But Earth spoke with one voice to the stars, a voice that had rejected the militaristic path that had nearly led to self-destruction. Instead, humanity had turned its genius toward ecological terraforming and bioengineered defenses. The planet gleamed blue-green from space, its once depleted forests restored and expanded, its oceans clean and teeming with life once more. Cities no longer sprawled across landscapes but rose in elegant spirals that minimized their footprint while maximizing efficiency. Energy came from the sun, the wind, and the deep thermal currents of the planet's core, clean, renewable, and abundant. But Earth's most remarkable achievement remained hidden from casual observation. In low orbit around the planet, nearly invisible against the backdrop of space, floated thousands of translucent, leaf-like structures, the canopy shields. These massive, genetically engineered organisms were Earth's first and last line of defense, capable of absorbing and neutralizing energy weapons through a process of adaptive symbiosis that human scientists had perfected over generations. Dr. Amara Jensen strode through the underground complex that served as the nerve center for these orbital defenses. Holographic displays showed the status of each shield cluster, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing in synchronization as they communicated with their terrestrial control systems. "General Liu," she called out as she entered the command center. "We need to talk." General Marcus Liu turned from the strategic display he had been studying. A tall man with a weathered face and penetrating eyes, he had served as the commander of Earth's orbital defense network for nearly a decade. Before that, he had led the peacekeeping forces that helped establish stability during Earth's unification process. "Dr. Jensen," he acknowledged with a curt nod. "I take it you've seen the Council's message." "I have," she replied, "and I think we need to consider an unconventional response." Liu's expression hardened. "The shields are ready. If they attack, we can absorb and redirect their initial salvo. It might give us leverage for negotiation, or it might escalate the conflict beyond repair." Amara countered. "The Council expects us to either surrender or attempt some kind of military response. What if we did neither?" Before Liu could respond, a young engineer approached them, tablet in hand. Kai Patel had been one of the lead designers on the latest generation of canopy shields, his brilliant mind responsible for several key innovations in their neural network. "General, Dr. Jensen," Kai greeted them, his voice tinged with urgency. "President Li Wei has called an emergency session. All senior advisors are required to attend." The three made their way to the secure conference room where United Alliance President Li Wei waited, her usually serene face tight with concern. Around the oval table sat the 12 representatives of Earth's governing council, scientists, diplomats, and former military leaders who had guided humanity through its recovery and renewal. "The situation is grave," President Li began without preamble. "The Galactic Council has never issued an ultimatum it wasn't prepared to enforce. Our intelligence suggests they have targeted 50 major population centers for the first wave of attacks." General Liu stepped forward, activating a holographic display that showed the orbital defense network. "The canopy shields are at full capacity. We can withstand their initial assault and potentially disable a portion of their fleet. However," he added grimly, "we cannot guarantee complete protection, and we have limited offensive capabilities." "Then we should consider immediate partial evacuation," suggested one council member. "Move as many civilians as possible to the underground shelters." "And show weakness?" argued another. "That's exactly what they expect." "It's not weakness to protect our people," countered a third. As the debate intensified, Amara observed the interplay of fear and determination on her colleagues' faces. Each had their own history, their own reasons for defending Earth in their chosen way. General Liu's family had died during the Council's expansion into the Proxima Centauri system, a pacification that had left millions dead across 3 colonies. His hunger for justice, some might call it vengeance, was personal and deeply rooted. Kai had been born after the unification, part of the first generation to grow up in a world at peace with itself. His brilliance was matched only by his idealism, his belief that technology should serve life rather than destroy it. And Amara herself carried the scars of her childhood on a war-torn colony, where she had witnessed firsthand the devastation that came from meeting violence with violence. Those experiences had shaped her career, her insistence that intelligence and ingenuity could succeed where brute force would inevitably fail. "President Li," she said, rising to her feet when there was a momentary lull in the debate, "I would like to propose an unprecedented response." All eyes turned to her, some curious, others skeptical. "The Council expects either surrender or retaliation. What if, instead, we thank them?" Stunned silence greeted her words. "Thank them?" General Liu's voice was incredulous. "For threatening to annihilate our planet?" "Not for the threat," Amara clarified. "For the opportunity they've given us to demonstrate who we truly are as a species, who we've become." President Li leaned forward, intrigued despite herself. "Explain." "Dr. Jensen, the Galactic Council has conquered countless worlds through fear and overwhelming force. They've never encountered a civilization that didn't either fight back or submit. What if we did neither? What if we sent them something they've never seen before, a genuine thank you note? General Lu's expression darkened. This is no time for jokes. Doctor, I'm entirely serious, Amara insisted. But this wouldn't be an ordinary note. It would be a living message, crafted from our bioengineered technology, something that embodies Earth's unique approach to existence. Kai's eyes widened as he caught her meaning. The luminescent algae we developed for deep space communication, we could modify it to carry a message visible to all Council species. Exactly, Amara nodded. Instead of threatening them back or begging for mercy, we thank them for this chance to open genuine dialogue. We show them something they've never seen before, a civilization that refuses to engage on their terms. And if they destroy us anyway, General Lu challenged. Amara met his gaze steadily. Then we will have died true to ourselves, not compromising our principles out of fear. But I don't think they will. The Council's power rests on predictable responses. When faced with the unpredictable, they hesitate, and in that hesitation lies our opportunity. President Lee studied Amara thoughtfully. It's an enormous risk. So is any other option, Amara replied simply. After hours of heated debate, the Council reached its decision. Earth would respond to the threat not with surrender, not with military posturing, but with a gesture so unexpected it might just change the rules of engagement entirely. The work began immediately. In an orbital laboratory, Kai Patel led a team of genetic engineers in cultivating a special strain of bioluminescent algae. These microscopic organisms had been developed originally to survive the harsh conditions of deep space, creating living communication beacons that could transmit data through light patterns. For this mission, they would be modified further. The algae would be programmed to arrange themselves into words and symbols recognizable to all Council species, embedded with microscopic translation nodes that would convert the message into auditory frequencies for species that perceived primarily through sound. While Kai's team worked on the biological components, linguists and cultural specialists crafted the message itself, simple, sincere, and carefully calibrated to avoid any phrasing that might be interpreted as submission or aggression. General Lu, still skeptical but following orders, oversaw the security aspects of the operation. If this fails, he told Amara, as they observed the algae cultures growing in their transparent chambers, I want your assurance that we'll activate the canopy shields. If this fails, Marcus, she replied, using his first name to emphasize the gravity of the moment. You have my word that we'll use every defense at our disposal. But I believe this has a better chance of success than you think. Why? He challenged. Because you want to believe the best of everyone, even those who've proven themselves monsters. Amara shook her head. Because even monsters can be surprised, and surprise creates opportunity. As the deadline approached, Amara found herself standing alone in the observation deck, watching Earth's night side passing beneath her. Cities glowed with warm light. Forests pulsed with the subtle bioluminescence that had been introduced during the regeneration projects. It was beautiful, fragile, and worth protecting. But how? Doubt gnawed at her. Was she risking billions of lives on a philosophical gambit? Was her faith in communication naive, a luxury purchased by those who had never had to make the hard choices that preserved civilization? Couldn't sleep either. She turned to find Kai standing in the doorway, his young face showing signs of exhaustion from the marathon engineering session. Just thinking, she admitted, wondering if I've made a terrible mistake. Kai joined her at the viewport. The algae cultivation is complete. The message is encoded and ready for deployment. For what it's worth. I think you're right. The Council hasn't encountered anything like this before. That doesn't mean it will work, Amara said softly. No, Kai agreed. But it means we're not surrendering our humanity, either by submission or by becoming what we fear. He paused, My grandmother used to say that the true measure of civilization isn't what it builds, but what it refuses to destroy. Amara smiled faintly. Wise woman. She survived the resource wars, said she learned everything important about human nature during those years. Kai's gaze returned to the earth below. This is our chance to show that we learned something too. As dawn broke over the Pacific, the deployment began. A small, unarmed drone carried the container of engineered algae toward the Council flagship. The massive vessel's weapon systems locked onto the approaching object, but held fire as their sensors detected no explosive materials or energy signatures consistent with known weapons. Inside the Council chamber, Chancellor Veldrix received reports of the strange approach with growing impatience. "What game are the humans playing?" he demanded of his tactical officer. "Unknown. Chancellor. The object appears to be a simple container with biological material inside. No detectable threat." "Bring it aboard," Veldrix ordered. "Let us see what pathetic gesture they've chosen for their final hours." The container was transported to the Council chamber, a vast room where representatives of the 17 core species of the Galactic Council gathered to witness Earth's response. As the seal was broken remotely, the algae spilled forth, not as an amorphous mass, but as a precisely choreographed bloom that expanded to fill the center of the chamber. The luminescent organisms arranged themselves into shifting patterns, forming words in the Council's primary languages. Simultaneously, harmonious tones filled the chamber as the translation nodes activated. "To the Galactic Council," the message began. "We extend our sincere gratitude for this opportunity to introduce ourselves properly, rather than responding to threat with threat or pride with pride. We offer this living message as a token of what humanity has become, and what we hope our relationship with the galactic community might one day be." Shocked silence greeted the unprecedented message. Council members exchanged glances of confusion and, in some cases, outrage. Chancellor Veldrix stepped forward, his scales flushing deep crimson, a sign of anger in his species. "Is this mockery?" he demanded. "Do they think to disarm us with pretty words while our weapons stand ready?" "The analysis shows no hidden codes or weapon systems," reported his science officer. "It appears to be exactly what it seems, a message carried by genetically engineered algae." "Impossible," growled a general from the militant Krex faction. "No species faces extinction with such calm. This must be a distraction while they prepare some desperate defense, or an acknowledgement of defeat, presented with false dignity," suggested another council member. "Neither," countered an elder representative of the Melosian people, one of the council's oldest member species. "This is something new." As the council debated, the algae continued its programmed display. The words gave way to images, Earth's history unfolding in living light. The rise and fall of civilizations, the devastation of wars, the slow climb toward unity. Then came scenes of Earth's near destruction and subsequent rebirth. Forests reclaiming deserts, oceans healing, species once thought extinct returning to restored habitats. "What relevance is this?" demanded Veldrix. "Their history means nothing in the face of our power." But the display continued, showing humanity's first uncertain steps into space. The disastrous first contact with alien life that had nearly led to war, and then, most surprisingly, the rescue missions Earth had mounted for alien species in distress, even before formal diplomatic relations had been established. There was the evacuation of the real colony during their sun's unexpected nova phase, the medical aid provided during the Tressian plague, the environmental engineers who had helped stabilize the atmosphere of Calyx Prime after a devastating meteor impact. "These events occurred," confirmed the council historian, checking records. "The humans provided assistance without expectation of reward or alliance. A cunning strategy to appear benevolent," Veldrix insisted, but there was a new note in his voice: uncertainty. The final sequence showed Earth's development of the canopy shields, not as weapons, but as living protection that harmed nothing, destroyed nothing, yet rendered attacks ineffective. The message concluded with a simple invitation. We welcome the Galactic Council to join us in exploring what might be possible when cooperation replaces conquest. Our representatives stand ready to meet yours, wherever and whenever you deem appropriate. The chamber erupted in chaotic debate. Hardliners called for immediate action against Earth for its contemptuous response, while moderates cautioned that there might be diplomatic advantages to exploring this unexpected approach. They mock our ultimatum with algae and pretty pictures, raged the Krex general. I say we demonstrate our resolve now, before other worlds take this as a sign of weakness. Or perhaps, suggested the Melosian elder, they have shown us something we have forgotten in our long history of expansion, that there are alternatives to force. On Earth. The response team watched the Council's reactions through covert observation systems embedded in the algae itself. The debate raged for hours, far exceeding the original ultimatum's deadline. They're confused, reported Kai, monitoring the emotional signatures being transmitted from the Council chamber. They don't know how to categorize our response. General Lu studied the tactical display showing the Council fleet's positioning. Their weapons remain charged, but they haven't moved into attack formation. We've bought time, at least. Time for what? Asked President Li, who had joined them in the command center. Time for them to consider alternatives they hadn't imagined. Amara replied. That's all we can hope for, to introduce doubt where there was certainty. The algae's final program activated, a musical sequence encoded with emotional patterns recognizable to all sapient species. Not manipulation, but invitation, the universal expressions of grief. Joy, hope, and wonder translated into harmonies that resonated with the neurological systems of all present. In the Council chamber, the effect was immediate and profound. Some representatives withdrew, disturbed by the unexpected emotional resonance. Others moved closer, fascinated by the complex patterns of light and sound. This changes nothing, insisted Chancellor Veldrix, though his voice lacked its earlier conviction. We came to establish dominion, not to attend a concert. Yet perhaps we should consider, ventured a representative from the commerce-oriented Bell Collective, what unique contributions Earth might make as a partner rather than a subjugated world. These biological technologies alone could have significant value. Value that would be ours regardless, once we take control of their research facilities, countered the Krex general. Assuming those facilities continue to function after a military conquest, pointed out another counselor. History suggests that creative sciences rarely thrive under occupation. As the debate continued, divisions within the Council became increasingly apparent. What had begun as a unified show of force was fracturing into competing interests and philosophies. Finally, Chancellor Veldrix called for a formal vote, attack or negotiate. The Chamber's voting system activated, with representatives registering their positions through neural interfaces. The result appeared on the central display, 9-8 in favor of immediate military action. It is decided, announced Veldrix, a note of grim satisfaction in his voice. Prepare the first wave of planetary strikes. On Earth, the observation team watched in dismay as the Council fleet began to shift into attack formation. Activate the shields, ordered President Li, her voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. General Lu turned to the defense console, his hand hovering over the activation sequence. Once engaged, the canopy shields would absorb the Council's initial attack and, in some cases, reflect the energy back toward its source, potentially destroying Council ships and eliminating any chance for peaceful resolution. Wait, Amara said suddenly, her eyes fixed on the transmission from the Council chamber. Something's happening. On the screen, one of the Council representatives, a member of an insectoid species known for their rigid adherence to collective decisions, had risen from her seat. I wish to change my vote. announced Counselor Zeev of the Tressian Hive. "During the plague that devastated my homeworld, I was a larva, too young to understand what was happening. But I remember the humans who came, who risked contamination to bring medicines and food when other species quarantined us to die. They asked nothing in return." A murmur ran through the chamber as other council members recalled similar encounters. Small moments of unexpected generosity from the young species that had only recently joined the galactic community. "The vote is complete," Veldrix insisted. "The decision stands." "Our protocols allow for reconsideration before action is taken," countered the Melosian elder. "Counselor Zeev has the right to amend her position." With obvious reluctance, Veldrix acknowledged the procedural point. "Very well. The vote stands at 8-9 against immediate action. What do you propose instead, Counselor Zeev?" "A diplomatic mission," she replied. "A genuine exchange, not a demand for surrender. Let us learn what else these humans might show us, if given the chance." The shift in the Council's position was transmitted to Earth moments before the first missiles would have launched. In the command center, relief washed over the assembled team. "They're standing down," General Liu confirmed, his expression a mixture of disbelief and cautious hope. "The fleet is dispersing to a holding pattern." President Li turned to Amara, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "It seems your unconventional approach has earned us a reprieve, Dr. Jensen." "Not just a reprieve," Amara replied, scanning the incoming transmission. "They're sending a diplomatic delegation, not to accept our surrender, but to begin actual negotiations." In the days that followed, Earth prepared to receive the Council representatives. Rather than meeting in formal chambers or sterile conference rooms, President Li proposed hosting the delegation in the Singapore Ecological Preserve, one of Earth's most successful restoration projects, where a once polluted industrial zone had been transformed into a thriving ecosystem that integrated human habitation with natural processes. "Let them see who we are now," she explained to her advisors. "Not just through words, but through the world we've built." The Council delegation arrived with characteristic pomp, a fleet of smaller vessels escorting Chancellor Veldrix's personal shuttle. They were met not with military honors, but with a gathering of children from around the world, each holding a seedling to present to the visitors. "A custom on our world," explained President Li as Veldrix awkwardly accepted a tiny oak sapling from a smiling girl. "New relationships are marked by planting something that will grow over time." "An interesting tradition," the Chancellor replied, clearly uncomfortable with the lack of formal protocol. The negotiations that followed were unlike any in the Council's long history. Instead of demands and concessions, Earth's representatives proposed collaborative projects, environmental restoration of worlds damaged by industrial excess, adaptation of the canopy shield technology for protection against natural disasters, exchange programs for scientists and artists. "You must understand," Veldrix said during a private moment with Amara, "that this approach of yours has created significant disruption within the Council. Some factions are calling for my removal for failing to secure Earth's submission." "And what do you think, Chancellor?" Amara asked. The alien leader was silent for a long moment, his four eyes focused on the distant horizon where the restored city met the flourishing forest. "I think," he said finally, "that in 10,000 years of conquest, we have built an empire of obedient worlds. Yet here, in barely 3 centuries of unity, you have built something we never considered." "Which is?" "A civilization that grows stronger by giving strength to others." He turned his alien gaze to her. "It is not inefficient. As I would have claimed before, it is merely unfamiliar." 1 year later, Amara stood on the observation deck of an Earth diplomatic vessel, watching as the first terrestrial canopy shield was deployed in Council space. The living satellite unfurled its translucent panels like an enormous flower opening to the sun, its bioluminescent patterns pulsing as it established communication with its control systems. General Liu joined her. his uniform exchanged for the more ceremonial attire of his new role as Earth's military attaché to the Galactic Council. "Still feels strange," he admitted, "helping them build defenses after they nearly destroyed us." "Not helping them," Amara corrected gently. "Helping all of us. These shields will protect Council worlds from solar flares and meteor impacts. Not from enemies. It's the beginning of a different kind of security." "You really believe they've changed that much?" Lou's skepticism was evident. "I believe they're capable of change, just as we were," she replied. "A century ago, humans were still fighting each other over resources and borders. Now we're teaching the most powerful empire in the galaxy how to protect life instead of conquering it." Kai approached them, his tablet displaying the latest diagnostic data from the shield deployment. "Everything's functioning perfectly," he reported. "The Council engineers are already talking about applications we hadn't even considered." "And Chancellor Veldrix?" asked Amara. "Officially impressed?" Kai grinned. "Unofficially, I think he's a little envious that we thought of it first." As they watched, a Council vessel approached the newly deployed shield, its lights blinking in the formal pattern of recognition and respect, a gesture once reserved only for their most powerful warships. "I was wrong," Lou said quietly. "When you first proposed responding to their ultimatum with a thank you note, I thought it was naive idealism." "It was," Amara admitted. "But sometimes idealism sees possibilities that pragmatism misses." The canopy shield's petals adjusted their position, catching the light of the distant sun and transforming it into a shimmering display that enveloped both the Earth vessel and the Council ship in a gentle glow. Not a weapon, not a barrier, but a shared protection. In the garden of the Council's central embassy on Earth, Chancellor Veldrix walked beneath flowering trees with President Lee, discussing the next phase of their unprecedented alliance. Above them, the first generation of hybrid shields, designed jointly by Earth and Council scientists, orbited silently, their living components adapting continuously to the changing conditions of space. "Your people have a saying," Veldrix noted, his English still somewhat formal but improving with practice, "that the pen is mightier than the sword." "We do," confirmed Lee, "though it took us many centuries to truly believe it." "We had no such saying," the Chancellor admitted. "In 10,000 years of expansion, it never occurred to us that creation might be more powerful than destruction. Perhaps that is why, despite all our conquests, we had begun to stagnate." They paused beside a pool where the bioluminescent algae that had carried Earth's first message to the Council now flourished, cultivated as a living reminder of the day everything changed. "And now?" asked Lee. "Now," Veldrix replied, watching the patterns of light shift and flow beneath the water's surface. "I find myself wondering what other truths we might have missed in our certainty, what other powers might exist beyond force." The question hung in the air between them, not as a challenge but as a shared inquiry, the beginning of a conversation that would continue across species and stars, redefining power in a galaxy that had known only one kind for too long. On the far side of the garden, Dr. Amara Jensen smiled as she observed the unlikely pair. The thank you note had been just the beginning. The true message that empathy could indeed become the greatest force in the galaxy was still being written. One collaborative project, one shared discovery, one transformed perspective at a time. And in a universe defined by the expansion of space itself, perhaps that was the most fitting power of all, not conquest, which always reached its limits, but connection, which could continue to grow without end. In the vastness between stars, the canopy shields caught the light of distant suns and transformed it, not into weapons, but into protection for all who passed beneath them, a living testament to the truth that the greatest strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the courage to create something new from the ashes of what might have been. For in a galaxy that had known only the language of force, Earth had introduced a new dialect, one of gratitude, ingenuity, and the radical proposition that true power might rest not in making others small, but in helping them grow. And that, perhaps, was the most surprising weapon of all.